Monopolies like Apple's threaten the free and fair markets upon which our economy is based. They stifle innovation. They hurt producers and workers, and they increase costs for consumers. If left unchallenged, Apple will only continue to strengthen its smartphone monopoly. But there's a law for that. The Justice Department will vigorously enforce antitrust law. Enforcing the law protects consumers from higher prices and fewer choices. That is the Justice Department's legal obligation. That is what the American people expect. That is what they deserve.
U.S. Attorney General Merrick B. Garland delivering remarks about the Justice Department's civil antitrust lawsuit against Apple. Apple being sued by the U.S. DOJ in this historic monopoly lawsuit. The DOJ alleging the company has illegally monopolized the smartphone market using everything from restrictive software rules, green bubbles in text chats, and putting the squeeze on car makers to keep its stranglehold on the market. Many say this could lead to changes in the smartphone market. Let's find out more. Mitch Joel's with us, tech advisor, investor, and author of Control Alt Delete. Hi, Mitch.
Hey, Elias. Thanks for having me.
So what was your reaction when you heard this lawsuit coming down? It was a shockwave throughout the tech industry. What was your reaction?
It was a shockwave for me as well. I mean, here we sit in a world where clearly in the mobile phone market, you have choices with Android in particular. This is a product that superseded BlackBerry and managed to take a truly monopolistic product and completely open it up to many other players. There's many smartphone manufacturers. You have app developers. You have app developers who want to be within the ecosystem or not. I think the challenge in this is that Apple has created what is essentially a closed ecosystem, meaning they would like to be essentially an editor before allowing pieces to be a part of this. Whereas you do have platforms, for example, Android, that are more open. And the debate in open or closed ecosystems within tech has been the debate forever and ever. This was an attempt made also by the DOJ with Microsoft back in the day that did not fare great for anybody in the long term. It took a long time to get to nowhere. And I think we really have to distinguish in our world between a company that is big and doing big things versus one that is truly monopolistic, meaning there is just no competition.
So listen, you bring up some good points, right? Because the Samsungs of the world have tried. Facebook tried a phone. They failed. They got lots of money, right? It's not a money issue. Facebook has tons of cash. Amazon tried a phone.
Windows Phone,
Microsoft.
Microsoft.
They've tried, right? So are you basically saying fair is fair? Apple, you know, people may be locked into an Apple ecosystem, but they did it fairly, and that's their choice. Anyone can leave. You can leave willingly if you want to. Is that what you're saying, that this is just fair competition? Because the U.S. Department of Justice certainly disagrees with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when you're talking about access to a phone, it's one component of it. Access to carrier and connectivity, that's another component of it. So in Canada, obviously, we have a bunch of different carriers. The app market and the ecosystem there, definitely another question. It seems like we're speaking specifically about phones. Mm-hmm. And when I think about phones, I think that I definitely have more than one option if I want to choose. Not just look at the online discourse between those who love the Google Android approach versus the Apple approach. You can clearly live very well without Apple product, 100% in this instance for this product.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's a couple parts in this lawsuit that I took interest in. One is about cars and Apple apparently putting the squeeze on General Motors because Apple is going to try and make its CarPlay take over the entire car, right? And they're going to automakers, you want CarPlay in your cars? We have to take over all of the screens, not just the one screen, all of the screen, right? And, you know, again, that means to me, if you're putting the squeeze on automakers, say, oh, you can't have just the single CarPlay anymore. It has to be all or nothing. That to me is kind of, you know, an unfair way of keeping a stranglehold on the smartphone market to me.
It is, but you and I are both Tesla owners, rather. Mm-hmm. And what we've seen is that the integration with the iPhone into the Tesla is almost seamless. Why? They don't have CarPlay on Tesla. What do they have? They have access. They've created relationships for specific apps, whether it is the Map app or the podcast app, which recently came on. And you and I've had this conversation before where I said, wow, I didn't even realize, oh yeah, it's not Apple in the Tesla. It's just so seamless. In GM's case, they might be in a position because of how they operate and manufacture that they have a massive time problem. They have years and years where you're on older platforms, older OSs. I know in my previous cars, my constant frustration to connect whether it was an Apple device or non-Apple device was extremely frustrating. They would intuitively love to own the dashboard, of course. But I think what Apple is essentially saying is we have a product that customers really, really want, and that's going to be impactful. I don't know about you. When I get into a car that doesn't have Apple Play because I'm an Apple user, I'm severely disappointed. And by the way, I would be equally disappointed if I didn't have access to my Android devices.
Okay, so let's talk about the green bubbles for a second, right? Because there are emails that exist, public emails from Apple executives, where they are talking about the green bubble situation, where if you message an Android user, it goes as a regular SMS, there's no encryption, and it shows up as a green bubble. And I've seen the text messages from Apple executives saying, basically, if we change that and we let the messaging between Android and Apple happen easily, we're going to make it so simple for parents to buy their children cheap Android phones instead of our expensive iPhones. So it certainly seems like Apple's the green bubble thing. This is done on purpose to keep people locked into the Apple ecosystem.
Yeah, and I would throw back in a capitalistic business-based world, if you had a competitive advantage with an app that people truly enjoyed and wanted to engage with, why would you open it up to that opportunity for the competitors to come in and step up? So again, it's one thing to say, well, they're controlling it. They're controlling their own product development, which has created a superior marketplace for it. I'm okay if it was the only one and you couldn't message people on, people forget. I remember the day and age where we didn't have interoperability for SMS, meaning if you were on Telus and I was on Rogers, I couldn't text you. That was considered a competitive advantage. But again, through other messaging apps, through platforms like WhatsApp, owned by Meta, you can have and chat with as many people as you want anywhere on any app or device. So having this one aspect of it where we're talking about, well, you're not directly messaging someone on an Apple device versus you're going through your carrier or whatever, I think that's a very, very slim legal standing for this to have a conversation around their control. What are they controlling? They're controlling their own proprietary messaging system. Why wouldn't you if you were a corporation?
We're with Mitch Joel talking about the U.S. Department of Justice's lawsuit against Apple, alleging that the company monopolized the smartphone market, illegally monopolized. Monopolies are legal, by the way. It's illegal monopolies that are Correct, the issue here. So we're seeing this around the world, right? The European Union is also coming down hard against Apple. Now we're seeing the U.S. come hard against Apple. It kind of seems like you might be making the argument here that this would be bad for innovation. This would stay out of the way. Let Apple do what they want. Let someone else compete with something better. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what?
No, I think that if there was such a gap between one technology or another, or no option, meaning you're in a browser and you're locked into a specific search. Now, again, if you own that browser as a company, you've made a distribution deal with Apple. In this case, Apple, Google had this for billions of dollars going back and forth. Google's not doing that, or Apple's not doing that because it's at the behest of a monopoly. They're doing this because they realize one has a superior product. I need to integrate this. And I think the challenge of any type of illegal monopoly would be in the actual breakdown of demonstrating that, one, the customer doesn't have any options, two, that there's something behind a black sheet that we don't realize is going on. And I think it's going to be really problematic for them to demonstrate that.
Okay, but let me ask you on this aspect here, right? If you have a Mac, you have a PC, you want to load software on it. You can go anywhere you want, and you can load whatever software you want. You can go to a website, you can go to app stores, you can go anywhere you want and get whatever software you want. On the iPhone, right, Apple has said, nope, not going to let you have that. You want apps? You got to go through our store. They've completely locked out everyone else, right? This Absolutely. Is part of what's happening in the European Union, where they're trying to stop that, but Apple's coming up with the craziest restrictions to basically end up in the same situation, but go with the spirit of the law, or go with the law, but probably against the spirit of the law. On that aspect, Mitch, isn't that unfair? I mean, they have now made it impossible. I can't go to a special store or special website, whatever I want, and put whatever I want on my phone. I own it, but I can't. What about that aspect?
So one is, I agree that is a conversation worthy of having. if there wasn't another side to it. And the other side to it is how many viruses have you had on your iPhone because of downloading apps or nefarious technology? What has been their history with privacy, end-to-end encryption, and your ability to be a safe consumer in primarily most of your interactions?
Same thing on the Mac. Like, I'd get it if the Mac was some sort of virus-infested hellhole, but I'm on my Mac. I don't have those issues. So why can't Apple do the same thing, right? Well, you can install software wherever you want on the Mac. Well, why can't you do it on the iPhone and be just equally as safe?
Well, to be clear, those softwares do have to follow a specific protocol for them to be able to be accessible on your Macintosh. There are standards that they have that are very, very high. So again, cost versus effect. Are you okay being in a closed ecosystem? If I was seeing indications on it that was putting my safety and privacy in place, I'd have questions. But knowing the high level, that's what I want to pay for.
Mitch, got to leave it there. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much.
Have a great day, Elias. Thanks for having me.
Mitch Joel is a tech advisor, investor, and author of Control Alt Delete.